so excited that you joined us this morning to read a little bit about God's Word and think about His will for us as we begin our day in His beautiful creation. We're in Matthew chapter 8. Lord willing, we'll finish up Matthew chapter 8 today. Mark?
Matthew chapter 8, beginning in verse 23. As they got into the boat, his disciples followed him. Suddenly, a violent storm arose on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves. But Jesus kept sleeping. So the disciples came and woke him up, saying, "Lord, save us, we're going to die." He said to them, "Why are you afraid, you of little faith?" Then he got up and rebuked the wind and the seas, and there was a great calm. And the men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the wind and the sea obey him." When he had come to the other side, to the region of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men met him as they came out of the tombs. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. Suddenly they shouted, "What do you have to do with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" A long way off from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. "If you drive us out," the demons begged him, "send us into the herd of pigs." "Go," he said. So when they had come out, they entered the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and perished in the water. Then the men who tended them fled. They went into the city and reported everything, especially what had happened to those who were demon-possessed. At that, the whole town went out to meet Jesus. When they saw him, they begged him to leave their region. Noah.
So, a couple things. First of all, I just want to say I feel like sometimes we get so used to reading about Jesus. I get so used to reading about Jesus that I read a story like him calming a storm, and I just completely glaze over it.
Yeah, no big.
Thinking about some of the recent storms that we've had just in the U.S. and that sort of thing. Obviously, we have no idea what this storm was like, but storms are a big deal.
Yeah.
And for Jesus to just speak and calm this storm, that's a big deal.
Big deal.
And when we're facing storms physically or spiritually in our lives, have the faith that Jesus has complete authority and control over it. And I think what stands out to me, at least in this passage, is the response of the disciples. What kind of man is this? I believe that's rhetorical. There's only one kind of person who can just speak and winds and storms cease, and that's God. Psalm 89, verses 8 and 9. Psalm 107, 28 through 30. Psalm 23, 2, he leads me beside still waters. That idea is unique to God, that God has control over those elements. And of course, that's true in the next story as well, the spiritual realm, the demons and darkness and principalities and powers and all this stuff that we're facing. Jesus has control over that as well. And what I think is neat about these two stories side by side is we kind of get an image of what faith looks like here. Obviously, we have the disciples' complete lack of faith. Jesus says, you men of little faith. But I believe it's in James we read that even the demons believe and tremble. And we see that here. The demons are terrified of Jesus. But that's still not enough to cause them to obey.
Yeah.
And so there's just kind of this warning here for us. It doesn't matter what you see Jesus do, what you think Jesus has the ability to do, the power to do, the authority to do. It doesn't matter how much you believe in him. If you're not doing what he says, you're in the same position as all of these people, faithless and or hopeless.
Yeah. One of the things that strikes me is, of course, we understand that the construct of these chapters is man-made. Okay. Humans broke up these chapters. But I do find it interesting the way chapter 8 begins and the way it ends. In chapter 8, we find large crowds following him. And what happens at the end when the demon-possessed man is relieved, but the demons are thrown into the swine and someone suffers economic loss? The chapter ends with the whole town went out to meet Jesus. When they saw him, they begged him to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Why did they beg him to leave? Because this is a Gentile region of Israel. Okay. And that's why there was a pig farmer over there. but the Gentiles rejected the message because it impacted them financially. Now, of course, this doesn't mean Gentiles are rejected by God because of Christ. Gentiles are brought in. But there are two types of people here. The types of people who will listen and the types of people who won't listen. And I have to ask myself as I read through this, am I the type that will follow Jesus and listen to his teachings, or am I the type that when the teachings of Jesus impact me in a negative way, I don't want anything to do with him?
Yeah. And I would just also add your sermon on discipleship this past Sunday. How that ends is us going out and, again, like you said, go back to the beginning of chapter 8, see that you tell no one. When Jesus is trying to continue to move around a region or a city, he needs people to not be blowing up who he is, because he's trying to move around and heal people and especially teach people. Mm-hmm. But I think it's interesting in the parallel passage in Mark 5, when they plead with Jesus to leave, Jesus' response, he does it, but he tells the man who's been healed, I need you to go and tell everybody everything that's happened.
Yeah.
And so when Jesus is trying to move around a place, that's a time for these people to shut up. When Jesus is gone, people need to step up and do what their responsibility is, to spread the word about who Jesus is and what he does. Of course, Great Commission, Matthew 28, Jesus has left, and it's our responsibility now to be disciples, to take information about who he is and what he can do to the world.
Yeah, and how he's changed us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, good deal. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Hope, as always, that was helpful to you. Just keep reading through the Gospel of Matthew. You need the Gospels. Just pick up the Bible and read. If we can help you in some way, we'd love to do so. If you got any questions, comments, jot them down below on Facebook or YouTube.